Trustee Kellogg.
So the final of, and my apologies, the hour is late, and we have a lot of information going on here. But the biggest issue is the grants that are going to be coming out. I know that Trustee Otto and I probably both, with David Morris was the Academic Senate President for the state, we were contacting him and essentially, let's go, let's go, let's go. And that's when we found out there's a process. Everything's a process with community colleges. But in the future, in the next short period of time, there's going to be many opportunities for grants. Now, I don't know exactly what that means, but if we can have an opportunity to go chase that. I do know that when you started, that was at that short window of grants were offered in November, and the window was very short. And even when we were doing the presentation, I was texting Superintendent President Oakley at the time saying, are we pursuing these? And the answer was yes, but again, everything was such a tight timeline. And I don't know what all happened with those, but I would only just hope that Acting Superintendent President Gable and the college and all of you will work aggressively in whatever we can do to get some of those grants to help you continue, obviously. So good work, and thank you again. And nothing's ever fast, and we know it, but this is something that should be a priority, and we appreciate all your help.
Okay, thank you. I did not see that Trustee Malauulu wanted to ask a question, so please.
Actually, thank you. I just, I have two comments. First of all, thank you for being here. I really appreciate the information. Regarding the Z degrees, whatever you have to do to get students through the door and to educate them and to turn them around back into the community to serve, just do it. I mean, that, you know, I understand titles and names and regulations, but I think that's a worthy program, and I'm happy to see the faculty buying into that. And number two, thank you for taking on the issue of textbooks. As a student and a teacher, I have long felt that textbooks are ridiculously overpriced. And then when I started working in the industry editing textbooks and I realized how many hands they had to go through, I began to understand a little bit why they're so pricey, fact checking and a bunch of other stuff, but it still is a little overpriced. And it was interesting. You know, during my campaign, I was accused of getting commission for my students' textbooks, which is funny because so many of us here on campus use free online textbooks. So I thought that was very comical. Thank you for taking on the textbook problem, and I hope that our students really benefit from that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate all your hard work. Okay, 5.1, appointments to the Citizens Oversight Committee. I'm going to ask Acting Superintendent President Anne-Marie Gable to give a little bit of background and what her area did to come to this point.
So before you start, do you want a motion, though, to put something on the floor? Is there an action item
Oh,
that we should
yes,
put?
okay, sure.
And I'll just make a motion to accept the recommendations.
Okay.
Is that the proper motion?
Okay, so it was moved by Trustee Otto, moved by Trustee Kellogg, seconded by Trustee Otto to accept these two candidates for the Citizens Oversight Committee. Now we'll have discussion.
Thank you, Board President Baxter. So the board may recall that back in September, we revised the bylaws for the Citizens Oversight Committee. And one of the areas that we revised was related to how we're going to appoint members in the future. Another area was that we were adding 2 additional community members. So since we were adding the 2 additional community members, we undertook the newly developed process for selecting those members. What that entailed was advertising in the local newspapers, and so we advertised in the Press Telegram 2 different occasions on both October 5th and October 9th. We also put it up on our website, and we sent out emails via our communications link that we have. So the applications were due back on November 4th. We received 19 applications. And then in accordance with the bylaws, we had a committee that reviewed all of the applications that ultimately came to the recommendation that you see forward tonight. That committee was apprised of the board president, Dr. Ginny Baxter, our Citizens Oversight Committee chairperson, which is Ms. Elaine McDaniel, and then the superintendent president designee, which was myself as the vice president of administrative services. So the three of us met, reviewed all the applications, and are recommending tonight appointment of Sharon Diggs Jackson and Joan Greenwood to the Citizens Oversight Committee as community at-large representatives.
If I could just say, I was so impressed with the number of applications and the quality of the people who did apply. Many, many, many were qualified, and so it was a difficult decision. And I hope that you will send a letter to those who did apply, or have you already, and were not selected, or were you waiting till tonight?
We were waiting until tonight. We sent a preliminary letter to the two individuals that are being recommended, letting them know that they were being recommended, but we didn't want to send the other letter until the board actually took action. So those will go out tomorrow.
Okay, now let's open it to discussion. Trustee Malauulu.
First of all, I would like to go back in time a little bit and thank Trustee Zia for opening up the Bond Oversight Committee appointment process. So thank you for doing that. And I would like to thank her because as a result of that, for the first time, we were able to actually get a member from District Area 2, which has never been represented in the Bond Oversight Committee, which was wonderful, especially because of the numbers. Now, with the help of the Communications Department and Student Affairs, I got some numbers. And out of the 25,800 students that we have enrolled, 8,500 of them actually reside in zip codes that are covered with Area 2. That is 32%. I'm really proud of myself. I'm an English teacher, but I sat here and did the long math. So really proud of that. Betty Carnett, former senator who was my 7th grade math teacher years ago, would be really proud of me right now that I figured that out. Anyway, the appointee to the selection committee is here from my district. Her name is Joan Greenwood. Joan, if you could please stand prior to our approving you. Thank you for being here. And I mentioned to her that she was on the agenda today, and I don't think she was really interested in coming for that until she looked at the agenda, and this morning she texted me and said, I really want to see that procurement presentation. So that's why Joan is here. So thank you for that. Aside from the fact that such a large number of our student body resides in my district, those are generally the populations that deserve and need facilities and structures and the things that the bond provides. So I'm very grateful for that. Thank you. And also I understand that the other appointee is, and I don't want to steal your thunder, I'll let you share. It was somebody from President Baxter's district.
It happened to be somebody from my district, but let me back up for a minute. The primary reason, beside the fact that Joan is very well qualified, was the fact that there was no representative from Area 2, so that was very important. Sharon Diggs Jackson does happen to live in my district, and in looking at the makeup, the composition of the two candidates, there was no one from the African American community on the Bond Oversight Committee, and I thought that was very important, that since a large majority of our students are African American, so that is why I supported appointing Sharon Diggs Jackson, who happens to live right down the street, so she can walk over here and look at the building.
President Baxter, I have some questions.
Oh, yes, certainly. Trustee Zia.
Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Malauulu, for the kind words. I want to applaud our staff and this board for joining the effort to open up the process. I think we've certainly made improvements, and I want to applaud you. So thank you for being my partners in that. I just had a few questions as far as some of the mechanics of the process followed. I'm assuming everybody has received, all the board members have the applications, is that correct?
Let me clarify that, because one board member asked, we felt that every board member should have that opportunity, and that's why they were sent out today. And I
Right, so they
should-
have it.
And I should have said, yes, thank you, Trustee Zia, for your efforts in broadening the committee, and I think it's a very positive thing, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. So I wanted to understand, and thank you for expanding on some of the rationale on the recommendations that is put before us. And I think, I personally know Joan. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting Ms. Jackson, but I think Joan would do a fine job. But as far as the candidates, the 19 candidates, if I recall correctly, presently, is there anyone from the Long Beach Taxpayer Association on the board, on the Citizens Oversight Committee? My understanding it was Lakewood that had representation after talking to the Long Beach Taxpayer Association, but I wanted to just get the facts on that front.
Yes, that's correct. The taxpayer organization is not from the Long Beach Taxpayers Organization. It's from the Lakewood Village Neighborhood Association.
Right, and I know that
Is part of the city of Long Beach. I live in Lakewood Village, and I live in the city of Long Beach.
my question is, I saw that there was 3 applicants from Long Beach Taxpayer Association that submitted that seemed to be highly qualified. Was there a reason why we opted not to select them, or what was the basis for the recommendation is really what I'm getting at? Because they seem to meet, along with others, the criteria that we laid out, but perhaps the selection committee members, 2 of which are here, can provide some information on that front.
Well, first of all, there were probably 15 of the 19 that were very qualified. I mean, the people who came forward were outstanding. Architects, people working in fiscal, all different contractors. I mean, it was a very impressive group to go through. And I guess I thought I made myself clear that the reason that I supported Sharon Dix Jackson was that and this seems to be an important issue, that she reflects our student body. And that's why I supported her over some of the others. And by the way, people that I know very, very well, people I consider personal friends and very, very qualified, I felt that it was important to have someone from the African American community on the Citizens Oversight Committee.
Ms. Gable, can you remind us what the criteria was again?
So the basic criteria was that you need to live within the district, but then some of the desirable qualifications that we were looking at is that the individual had knowledge or expertise in either public finance and budgeting, large-scale construction operations, utilizing public guidelines, project management, or Long Beach City College and the local community. So it was either of those 4 areas is what we were looking at when we were evaluating the applications.
Okay, so when you were doing your review, how many of these people, of these folks, met those qualifications, and did you do a comparative analysis of who was most qualified as it pertains to the criteria we set out in the bylaws and in the application?
I don't have the data on how many of them met the qualifications. I think Board President Baxter already indicated that there were probably at least 15 of them that met the qualifications.
Did you keep score sheets of the evaluations that you conducted, or did you hold interviews with these folks?
No, we did not.
Okay. I noticed that, and again, I think this is nothing, I don't want to offend anybody or I think the recommendations are highly qualified, but just as a matter of information for my ability to make a determination, what were the qualifications of the people who are being recommended? And what was the basis for their recommending them based on the meeting the criteria?
Well, if I may answer,
Like, what do they do? What is like their
what impressed me about Joan Greenwood is she's an engineer. She's done, I don't have the thing right in front of me, but she has been involved in, and maybe Vivian, you know more than I do, in this kind of oversight. Another reason is she's shown interest in the college because she did apply for the seat and has kept in contact with the college, which I think is very important. What that means to me is that she's somebody who really cares about us, didn't just come apply and then never see again, and that's happened even with people who've run for office, that they're not visible again. But Vivian, maybe you can elaborate more on Joan's background.
Thank you. I probably cannot elaborate too much. I did review the applications that were emailed to me, and I've known Joan for some time. I do know that in her professional life, she oversees a lot of contracts, a lot of budget items. She also oversees projects that pertain to the community that involve workers, labor unions, so I am familiar with that. Like you said, she was also one of the applicants for the board appointment process a couple of years ago. She's a donor into our scholarship program. She is an annual contributor, I think monthly contributor, if I'm not mistaken. She actually does a monthly contribution to the foundation. And Joan is an active presence in West Long Beach, in the community, who has made an effort to be engaged with the college. That was what impressed me, and I can't even take credit for her appointment. It was actually Board President Baxter who had initiated that some time ago when the process was reopened. So for that, and I'm sure that you have a lot more qualifications than I'm stating, just judging from your resume and your professional background, but I think you're a great fit for the Bond Oversight Committee just from the work that you do. I apologize, I don't know the other appointee.
Well, I do. Sharon Dix-Jackson was a city employee for a number of years. She worked at the airport. She's used to dealing with looking at large scopes of material. She was a director. She's a very dedicated community member. She actually retired from her job with the city to go take care of her family in either Mississippi or Louisiana. But she retained her home, and she's back at Long Beach. And I felt she's a graduate of Leadership Long Beach. She's somebody that I think will do a very outstanding job in looking at the big scope of things, because that's what her job was at the airport, and management, and take those skills and use them on the Bond Oversight Committee.
Okay, is it, I'm looking at the application, it seems that Ms. Jackson, and again, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting her, current position is the program officer at the Gumbiner Foundation, from her application. This is the same Gumbiner Foundation that has contributed to the Long Beach City College Foundation, is that correct?
That is correct. It's, just to clarify, it's a Josephine S. Gumbiner Foundation.
Okay, and this is the same foundation, if I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, President Baxter, that gave $10,000 to the Homeless Student Task Force, that is an associate group of the Long Beach City College Foundation.
That is correct.
Which you secured, which we were grateful of.
That is absolutely correct. She was not working for the Gumbiner Foundation at the time the grant was made.
Okay.
She just started working for them 2 or 3 months ago.
Okay, but the foundation that she works at contributed to our associate group. And and it seems that I think I'm looking at the application for Ms. Greenwood, highly qualified again. I believe she's a scientist in environmental management, very qualified chemistry, just a minor enhancement that it's not engineering, it's environmental project manager. So I think she's highly qualified. I noticed that the deputy city auditor also applied. I have personally worked with her. This is Debbie Ellis. I think she's also very highly qualified. She has audited a number of contracts that I was involved in, and I noticed the high qualifications that she had, and I think she would have also been a great fit. Of course, there was only 2 people, and perhaps in the future we can look at that. There was quite a bit of people. I noticed that one was a money manager for the billionaire mogul Chaim Saban, and it was impressive. We had another one who was a rocket scientist, literally, that oversaw capital improvement programs, and works at Caltech. So it was highly qualified candidates, and that's why I ask what was the basis of determination, and if we can consider next time applying rigor as it relates to conducting interviews, keeping score sheets, and in case once we contact these people, they would want to know what was the basis of determination. I think it would make it even better, even bigger improvement. I do have to say that I view it as a, conflict of interest is real or perceived. It could be financial or non-financial. Because I serve on this task force that is affiliated with the Long Beach City College Foundation, I don't think it's prudent for me to vote for this recommendation. Out of abundance of caution, I will abstain because of one of the profiles of the recommended applicants. But I think you guys did a fine job, and I appreciate your efforts in this front. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we'll call for the question. Oh, Trustee Otto.
I'm a little concerned about this whole discussion, because I understand that this board has got to decide whether to follow the recommendations of the committee that we set out in our bylaws to recommend people for these positions. But, and in order to do that, you need to have some information about the people that are recommended. But I think it's inappropriate and not a good idea in this new process to open it all up again, talk about individuals that were not nominated. I think you may deter people from applying in the future if what happens is that what this process really boils down to is the board's going to say thanks very much and then go through the whole process again. So we just have to be careful. And I will make a specific recommendation with regard to how we vote on this time, and that is that I think we ought to vote on each of the recommendations separately, because I think that that's called for given the discussion that we've had.
Is that okay?
Can we make a friendly?
I have a question on that. Go ahead, Vice President Kellogg. It seems like you want to speak.
I'll be, if the second is willing to, I'll alter the motion to be that we will make a motion to first approve of, what was the first one?
Joan Green.
Joan. Make the motion that we'll be approving Joan, and then I'll follow that with a separate motion to appoint Sharon on that one.
Well, before we go, I have a question on that. Before we do that, I want to understand from a standpoint, if one of the recommended parties, and this is out of abundance of caution, has contributed to our campaigns in the past, would that be considered a conflict of interest in voting for this, for the recommendation? Our political campaigns to secure our jobs on this board.
The good news is neither of them have.
No, I think that's factually incorrect. For one of the applicants or recommended folks have contributed to both our campaigns. So I just want to understand if that would be considered a conflict if we were to vote in, separate the two.
If I can probably address that, and I am not an FPPC, Fair Political Practice Committee expert at all, but considering that the Bond Oversight Committee is an advisory body and it is not a decision-making body of the college, it is not a salary earning position, it is not a position which, is on the payroll. I think that the conflict is negated in that way because so many other opportunities, the foundation, for example, so many other athletic boosters or anything could, because Long Beach is such a small place, they could be contributors to political campaigns, whether it was 10 years ago or 10 months ago. So Joan Greenwood was a supporter of my campaign, and I wasn't the one who suggested that she get on this oversight committee. It was Board President Baxter. So with that regard, I don't know if that makes a difference. I would venture to say that this is a conflict of interest. If she were being hired by the college, I would preclude myself from voting. If the Bond Oversight Committee was a decision-making body, I would preclude myself from voting. But because it's an advisory position and there's no monetary exchange, I don't see a conflict.
If it's okay to get staffs, I appreciate that. And, having worked in this front, there's things that are legal but not ethical, and a conflict of interest from my past experience has been, it doesn't necessarily have to be financial, it could be non-financial, and it's real or perceived. So I want to get our staff's opinion before voting on this.
Again, not being the expert with the FPPC guidelines inside and out, but I would agree with Trustee Malauulu that since it is strictly an advisory committee with no decision-making authority, there would not be a conflict for a board member to vote on the recommendation.
Okay.
So-
Trustee Kellogg.
All right, thank you. So my understanding, what took place right there is because the motion that was made were both of them, so we will not be able to split them both out, just for Brown Act, et cetera. So as far as that motion, I'll just go back to my original motion. If it's approved by the second, that we're going to approve both names simultaneously, just to clarify everything, make it simple. The other items, I agree, these are individuals. And I would really like to call for the question before, one, Joan decides to walk out and not want to do this, and two, that it takes 31 years to get the classified Senate vote. With that, Madam Chair, if there's no other discussion related to the issue, I'd call for the question.
I think Ms. Greenwood, I know her, I think she would do an amazing job, so
Question's
let's
been
just for
called
the record.
The question's been called for.
Virginia Baxter.
Aye.
Jeff Kellogg.
Aye.
Vivian Malauulu.
Aye.
My eyes are tired. Doug Otto.
Aye.
And Sunny Zia.
Abstain.
Wait, where's abstain?
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Joan, for sitting through this, and congratulations. Now, resolution recognizing the Long Beach Community College Classified Senate.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
So it's been moved by Trustee Otto, been seconded by Trustee Kellogg. Is there any discussion? Please.
Virginia Baxter.
Aye.
Jeff Kellogg.
Aye.
Vivian Malauulu. Doug Otto.
Aye.
And Sunny Zia.
Aye.
Sorry.
Congratulations. Okay, now we need a 2-minute break to set up the telephone conference call. The reason I said 2 minutes is because as soon as we get Narcissa on the phone, we're gonna come right back. She's awake all the time.